Okay, so this is about dispositional explanations for obedience. So the first question is, in your opinion, are some people born to do bad things, or does the environment have a role to play? On page 31 in your booklet, there is a multiple choice question. I'll go through the answers in a sec. So that those are characteristics of the agentic state. And then this is another exam question. And in your booklets, you can make a plan for the following question: outline and evaluate 2 explanations for obedience. So your explanations are legitimacy of authority and agentic state. And your AO3, I would use research support and application to real life. Okay, so next we are looking at the authoritarian personality, which is a dispositional explanation for behaviour, looking at the relationship between the authoritarian personality and obedience, and looking at evidence that supports or challenges this. So a disposition is something to do with your personality. So the dispositional explanation is the authoritarian personality. So the theory is on page 37 in your booklets, and it's helpful if you can summarise that down into 3 bullet points. You don't want to be too waffly when you're describing the authoritarian personality in an exam. Situational explanations are what we've been looking at before. So they focus on external circumstances that make us more or less likely to obey. Dispositional, social psychological, explanations look at the influences of other people. And then dispositional explanations look at someone's personality. So we've already looked at situational, we've already looked at social psychological, and now we're looking at dispositional explanations of obedience. The way that the authoritarian personality is measured is through a scale called the F scale. So it stands for the fascist scale. So it was a questionnaire that was devised to measure how fascist someone is. And then the results from that were used to determine whether someone would have an authoritarian personality or not. What they found from this research was that people that scored highly in the F scale had a particular cognitive style. They had fixed and distinctive ideas about other people and groups, and it was very stereotypical, the ideas they had. And there was a strong positive correlation between authoritarianism, scoring highly on the scale, and kind of prejudice towards other people. So the identification of a personality type provided a possible explanation for why some people require very little pressure in order to obey. So there is an argument that someone that has an authoritarian personality is both more likely to obey and more likely to want to give orders. So the personality, if you have to define it, is a distinct personality pattern characterized by strict adherence to conventional values and a belief in absolute obedience or submission to authority. So the characteristics of an authoritarian personality are rigid beliefs in conventional values, general hostility towards other groups, intolerance of ambiguity, and a submissive attitude towards authority figures. And this results in certain behaviours being demonstrated by someone that is high in levels of authoritarianism. And those behaviours are on the right-hand side of the slide. The authoritarian personality is meant to come from a kind of harsh upbringing, one with much punishment and little love. And this leads to one of 2 responses. So either there is a fear of parents, which makes people excessively respectful of authority figures, or that can lead to a hatred of parents, which is then, that emotion is then displaced onto other people. So the origins of the authoritarian personality are meant to be in childhood, and that will either make you excessively respectful of authority figures, or you have very negative emotions towards other people. So in terms of the development of the authoritarian personality, the disciplined upbringing was meant to be as a result of parental influences, so little affection and severe punishments. This creates an unconscious hostility within the person, They consciously have very high opinions of their parents, but unconsciously feel aggressive towards them. This hostility, this emotion is then displaced onto safer targets. And then this results in prejudice. So this results in discriminatory views against certain groups of people. In terms of evaluating the concept of authoritarian personality, you can evaluate the F scale itself. So in Adorno's research, the sample were all male from America, so it's androcentric and it's ethnocentric. You can argue it lacks population validity. It doesn't explain why people are prejudiced towards some groups and not others. It also is very deterministic. It's saying that if you are prejudiced, you're going to have had a strict upbringing, and that's not necessarily the case. On the F scale itself, the statements are very limited. They're very subjective. They lack temporal validity. Some of them are quite unclear. And Adorno only found there was a relationship or a correlation between personality type and prejudice. He didn't establish cause and effect. He wasn't able to establish cause and effect. On page 32 and 33, there is a description, and then you should be able to complete tasks 1 and 2 on page 38. The problem with using questionnaires such as the F scale is that it's very subjective. It's open to bias. You might get investigator effects. You might get participant effects. And the statements are quite ambiguous in places. And the things with questionnaires is questionnaires demonstrate intent, not behavior. So a questionnaire will show someone's intent. It will not show you someone's actual behavior. It will show you what someone thinks they will do or someone intends to do. It won't show you what they will actually do. You can do some AO3 in terms of criticizing the methodology of the authoritarian personality and how the research has been carried out. So here's a appeal paragraph that looks at methodological points. Other evaluation points you could use, research support, individual differences, the fact there's alternative explanations. So social identity theory says we tend to favour our own in-group rather than an out-group. And from page 39 in your booklet, you should be able to peel the evaluation. So you can use Elms and Milgram study. You can also criticise the usefulness of the authoritarian personality explanation. And then you can look at, Milgram, its variations, and you can use that as an evaluation point as well. There is also some other research that you could use as well, but remember, you won't need to remember the names of any of these extra studies. They're not named on the spec. A potential full-mark question might be briefly outline and evaluate the authoritarian personality as an explanation for obedience to authority, and on the screen is the mark scheme that would be used to mark that answer. A 16-mark question could be something like outline and evaluate the extent to which dispositional explanations can explain obedience. For your AO1, you would have to describe what the authoritarian personality is and where it comes from. With your AO3, you would have to make sure that each part of your AO3 links back to the extent. So that is the stuff in bold. So you need to give a qualification of extent for all of your AO3 points in that essay.